I don't like the ball placement right there when you're doing this, but you just made a grown man fall on his freaking all fours and then just easily throw this with a spin. Look at this, in the pocket, just so calm, so collected. You're just going to I think that's Highsmith, just come right through the A-gap. Look, I thought this offensive line played pretty decent today. They played a little bit better. 68 played a little bit better, struggled a little bit. They didn't pick up pressures quite a bit. You'd love for this guard to come down and this tackle to stay on so you're not having through. But watch Shedeur, just super calm. Like, this is really impressive to me. Heck of a block by the running back right there. But he's just sort of chilling and just sort of makes some stuff happen. Really, really calm. I mean, this is play 2 of the game. I think what they're trying to do right here is run a go route. They're trying to run an option, break in or break out, trying to run a hitch, and then over top right here. I think this is supposed to be read like this: 1 to 2 to 3. Shedeur doesn't even have a chance to read this out because he's worried about. He would have thrown this right here on the middle because you're doing the right thing. You're looking this way. You're trying to throw into pressure, so that's great. Doesn't even have a chance, but man, makes that guy look silly. Spins, huge play.
What if I told you the Cleveland Browns already have their franchise quarterback, and the NFL world is just too proud to admit it?
Hopefully they don't have to use one of those first-round picks they have next year towards the quarterback position. Realistically, in a perfect world, Shedeur or Dylan Gabriel is your franchise quarterback and DeJuan Jones is your franchise left tackle. Now we really cooking with them 2 picks in the first round. A lot of people are going into this season with low expectations for the Browns. He is probably the one bright spot right now that people are like, you know what though? If we don't win no games, but he looks good and you know what I'm saying, we can figure out the quarterback situation and he's the answer. That's a successful season to a lot of people.
Under no circumstances are we stopping the celebration. That's off top. When he do that, Tyver said it. When he do that the first time they score, it's gonna go crazy. It's gonna go.
I'm telling you, they're gonna have foam fingers in the stand.
Bro, it's gonna go crazy.
I think Shedeur is the guy. It's always fascinating when we said this before, where if guys had Shedeur Sanders as QB1 or QB2 or a top 40 quote unquote talent all throughout 2024 up until April 30th, 2025. Then what changed just because he went in the 5th round? So he is still the talent that you thought he was. And it's cool that he got out there and got those starts in 7 games, 7 weeks of first team reps. They went 3-4 in those starts. They should have been 5-2. I'm looking at that Bills game, and I'm looking at.
You think the Shedeur fans have kind of cooled off in the head coaching search conversation? I did wonder if because we really spent like 3 weeks not talking about Shedeur at all, and I wondered if they just kind of went away for a little bit.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, good. Because I don't want them to go anywhere. I want them to get committed with this, stay with this, become longtime Browns fans with this. I just didn't know if the 3 weeks we just did all head coaching stuff and very, very little Shedeur Sanders conversation if they had moved.
I just was surprised that in the 3 weeks we talked very little Shedeur Sanders, how the second that we made any mention of it, how immediately people went back to a vitriol level of 10. And I was just like, I don't know how we're there. Like, if we started talking Shedeur now, I couldn't possibly be as invested as I was 4 weeks ago because there's no games going on.
Yeah, that's going to be the hard part.
And that's not social media.
Yeah, but I think when we start, when we get closer to the summer and then into the summer and we know what the quarterback picture is going to be, and then we can kind of start doing some of the training camp stuff.
It's February. The NFL Combine is here. Indianapolis is buzzing. Every scout, every analyst, every GM in the league is walking around with a clipboard and a coffee, debating who's worth a first-round pick. And right in the middle of all that noise, someone finally said it out loud. Emory Hunt, CBS Sports, owner of Football Game Plan, a man who has been studying this game at every level, college, pros, the draft, for years. He didn't sugarcoat it. He didn't hedge his bet. He sat down on the airwaves and said flat out, there is no quarterback in this draft class better than what the Browns currently have on their roster. Let that sink in. Not Shedeur Sanders is a solid backup option. Not he showed some flashes. No, Emory Hunt said, this kid, this fifth-round pick, this guy the entire league passed on 143 times, is better than every single quarterback available in the 2025 NFL Draft. Every single one. Here's the thing that makes this story so hard to shake. The disrespect towards Shedeur Sanders didn't start when he slipped in the draft. It started way before that. This was a quarterback who had scouts, analysts, and draft experts listing him as a QB1, QB2, top 40 talent throughout all of 2024. People who actually watched tape on this kid gave him real grades, real evaluations, the kind that don't change just because of a draft position. And then, April 30th, 2025 happened. He fell, and he fell hard. And suddenly, like clockwork, those same voices that praised him started whispering, maybe he's not that good, maybe the fall means something, maybe the team saw something we didn't. But Emory Hunt didn't flinch, and that matters, because here's the honest question nobody wants to answer. What changed about Shedeur Sanders the player on April 30th, 2025? His arm didn't get weaker overnight. His football IQ didn't disappear. His toughness, the kind of mental toughness you can't coach and you can't fake, didn't evaporate because 32 teams decided to play games on draft day.
They went 3-4 in those starts. They should have been 5-2. I'm looking at that Bills game and I'm looking at that doggone Titans game. So if they're 5-2 going into the offseason, you feel pretty good, especially winning against the Steelers and Bengals and how they won both of those games to close out the season. You'll be feeling pretty good considering the context around Shedeur is that when he got out there to start, he was essentially out there with an NFL Europe roster. There were times I couldn't know if I was watching the Browns or the Barcelona Dragons. So, but all the guys that were out with injury.
Nothing changed about the player. Only the narrative did. Let's talk about what Shedeur Sanders walked into when he finally got his shot in Cleveland. This wasn't a quarterback getting handed the keys to a loaded roster. This wasn't Patrick Mahomes stepping into Andy Reid's offense with Tyreek Hill running free. This was a young man stepping onto an NFL field with what Emory Hunt called, and I love this line, an NFL Europe roster. There were stretches of games where Hunt said he genuinely couldn't tell if he was watching the Cleveland Browns or the Boston Dragons. That's not a compliment to the supporting cast. That's a commentary on how stripped down, how injured, how threadbare that offense was. And Shedeur Sanders still went out there and competed. 7 games, 7 weeks of first-team reps, 3 wins and 4 losses on the record. But here's where it gets real. Hunt looked at that schedule and said they should have been 5-2. 5-2. The Bills game, the Titans game, 2 games that slipped away not because the quarterback fell apart, but because of circumstances around him. And if those breaks go differently, if those bounces land on the right side of the field, you're sitting here right now talking about a young quarterback who went 5-2 in his first stretch of NFL starts, surrounded by backup players on a depleted roster. You'd be calling him a franchise cornerstone, and you'd be right. The wins he did get against the Steelers, against the Bengals, 2 divisional games, 2 games that actually mean something in the AFC North, closed out the season with back-to-back wins against playoff-caliber competition. That's not luck. That's a quarterback. Now let's talk about Fernando Mendoza, because this is where it gets uncomfortable for a lot of people. Mendoza is going number 1 overall. That's basically decided. And look, give credit where it's due. The kid had a remarkable season at Indiana. He deserves to be celebrated for what he accomplished.
Shedeur didn't throw at the combine last year. He got a lot of flack for it. Mendoza's not throwing at the draft this year. Should Mendoza be taking some flack for that as well then?
But he gives great interviews, though, man. I mean, it's just so loving. Like, of course, he shouldn't be taking flack because Shedeur shouldn't have taken flack last year. And this is not new. We've seen these quarterbacks not throw, and I don't blame him for not throwing. You have nothing to lose. You have a lot to lose and nothing to gain. Mm-hmm. So if you're Fernando Mendoza, you're it's not like he's trying to be a top 5 pick.
But Emory Hunt, the same man who has been right about quarterbacks at every level of this sport, said he has a higher grade on Shedeur Sanders than anyone in this entire draft class. Higher than Mendoza. Higher than the guy going first overall. And Hunt's comparison for Mendoza? A slightly more athletic version of Jared Goff. Now, Jared Goff is a fine NFL quarterback. He just took the Detroit Lions to the NFC Championship game. So that's not an insult, but it is a ceiling, and it is a very specific kind of quarterback, one who needs the right system, the right pieces, the right coaching staff around him to truly thrive. And here's the kicker that nobody's talking about enough. Mendoza isn't throwing at the combine, just like Shedeur Sanders didn't throw at the combine last year. Shedeur got absolutely destroyed for that decision. It became a talking point. It became part of the narrative that something was off about him. Sports media ran with it for months. Mendoza does the same thing, and it's fine? It's understandable? Hunt made the point perfectly. Neither of them should take flack for it. You have nothing to gain and everything to lose. But the double standard? That's real. And it says more about how people viewed these two quarterbacks going in than it does about either decision. So where does this leave the Browns? According to Hunt, and this is the part that should genuinely excite Cleveland fans, the answer isn't to go find a new quarterback. The answer is to build around the one they have. Offensive line first. That's the foundation. Hunt was actually pushing the Browns to double down on the trenches in the first round. Francis Malinigau out of Miami at pick 6. Monroe Freeling out of Georgia at pick 24. 2 tackles, 2 pieces that protect the investment they already have standing in that locker room. Because here's the cold truth about great quarterbacks in this league. They don't show up in a vacuum. They need time to throw. They need blockers who can open lanes. They need receivers who can get open and actually catch the football when it matters. Shedeur Sanders playing behind a patchwork offensive line with a banged-up skill position group isn't a fair evaluation of Shedeur Sanders. It's a survival test, and he survived. Give him the real thing. Give him a real offensive line. Give him a real wide receiver who can be a legitimate number 1 threat. And then watch what happens. There's something that doesn't sit right about how this whole story has played out. A young quarterback works his entire life, puts up elite numbers, gets real grades from real evaluators, and then, on one day, draft day, the league sends him a message. We don't think you belong here. Not at the top. Maybe not at all. He went in the 5th round. He showed up anyway. He walked into a broken situation and competed. He beat the Steelers. He beat the Bengals. He didn't quit. And now, at the NFL Combine, with the whole league gathered in Indianapolis talking about the next generation of quarterbacks, one of the most credible voices in draft evaluation is standing up and saying, "You already have the guy. You don't need to look anywhere else." The Cleveland Browns have their quarterback. His name is Shedeur Sanders, and the NFL is going to spend the next decade realizing they passed on him.